I have good news for you all. I have very good news for you all. It is possible to find a good woman today. It is still possible. I know the enemy has deliberately cultured it into the society that women must be narcissistic for them to make it. But regardless of whichever efforts that he has put into place to turn them, I present to you this day that there are still good women in the world for you today. In fact, I would say that there are not only good women, but there are enough good women so that every man who applies the lessons that I will teach today will be able to find one for themselves if they indeed want to. So today I want us to look at the possibilities, the process of getting such a woman. Before we get there though, we have to address the elephant in the room, which is that although there is a way into getting to where the good women are, it is also possible to find women who are not good. And before you are able to tell what a good woman is, it's good to be able to tell who an evil woman is. Because you do not want to end up with an evil woman while you are on your way to your good woman. I will let the Bible speak to us today from the book of Proverbs. Proverbs was largely written by King Solomon, who was King David's son. King Solomon had 700 wives, he had 300 concubines. So if there is a person who knew about women, it would be Solomon. So if a man who has 1,000 women decides to talk to you about them, it's good to listen. Okay? I'll go into, later I will go into the morality and the issues surrounding him having all these women, because I'm not saying to you that you should go and have 1,000 women. No. But for the sake of the topic that we are just addressing today, I won't go into Solomon as a man himself. I'll just read what he wrote down by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit concerning, first, good women and evil women. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 5. Verse 3. First, remember I'm addressing the narcissistic woman, okay? It says of her here, "For the lips of a strange woman drop as an honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil." The lips of a strange woman drop as an honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. In short, beware of someone who is obsessed with her looks. There's a science behind red lipstick. Do you know that? And I'm not even bashing red lipstick per se, and I'm just pointing out the science behind it, which is this. The reason red lipstick is so attractive to men is because the purpose behind it is actually seduction. There's no other purpose behind them making red lipstick. In the way that the psychology of, remember I'm mentioning the science behind it, so this is not really a debatable issue. It's like the science about it. It's been researched and found out that the redness, that's why they also apply some red blooms around their cheeks when they're doing their makeup. it has a psychological effect on a man who is looking upon it, which kind of brings out that sexual instinct in them. So, yeah, red lipstick uh, has that effect. Whether you should wear it or not, that is up to you. But I'm saying that it has that effect on men, which is why women wear it. And Solomon here is kind of, in this verse, saying the lips of a strange woman drop as an honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. That's wordplay. He means two things. He means the outward appearance of the lips themselves. Someone who is obsessively, who is obsessed with seduction. And one of the ways to see it is by what she does with her lips physically. But also, smoother than oil, meaning the words that she is able to say. She has practiced what experts have come to call the love bombing phase in narcissism. So in narcissism, a narcissist in the love bombing phase will usually use seduction and flattery. If it's a woman and her intentions are sexual or intimate, she will use both the physical, and you see the Bible is pointing these things 1,000 years before Christ actually was born. So it's been there. It's the way of the world. So yes, if you see someone who is obsessed with how seductive their lips are, and anatomically speaking, the lips are actually directly proportionate to what's between. You get me? I don't want to be demonetized or something. So yeah, it's actually the science behind it, and so the redder the lips are, the more it resembles the actual. You know what I'm talking about. So we're just saying things the way they are on this channel. If there are narcissists out there who will be hunting after you, it's good to know how they operate. If someone is obsessed with how their lips look and have perfected the smoothness physically and also verbally by the words that she says, be careful, because that's how narcissists operate. It says in verse 4, although this is, in verse 3, although this is how she presents herself, her end is as bitter as wormwood. Wormwood is the Bible term. That's the word that they use in Revelation to prophesy about nuclear radiation. So when it says her end is as bitter as wormwood, it says there's that heavy bearing, that feeling that is left after they have said what they've said, after you've engaged with them, after physically actually coming into contact with such a person. There is that after effect, the way a nuclear bomb explodes, and there is the radiative effect, which even lasts for years and years and years. For example, that plant in Russia that blew up, was it in what? Was it in 65 or 71? And they said for the next how many 100 years, that whole area will not be conducive for life. So it's the same. It's a very strong word when it says this is how she presents herself, but her end is actually as bitter as wormwood, as nuclear radiation. And it also says as sharp as a two-edged sword. These same lips which say very smooth things, these same lips actually will cut you to pieces after the deed is done. Believe it or not, when she is discarding you, it will feel as if she is chopping you down to pieces. In verse 6 it says, lest you ponder the path of her life. Her ways are movable, that thou canst not know them. This is another very potent sign you need to look out for when you're observing women. A narcissistic woman usually would be someone who you never know her going out and her coming in. No one knows where she goes. No one knows when she's coming back. No one knows what she does during the day. No one knows what she's doing at night. You cannot explain her paths. You cannot explain how she survives. You cannot explain how she's doing what she's doing. It says there, if you ponder the path of her life, her ways are movable. So she's always moving, and you cannot know where she's moving to. That is a Bible red flag for a narcissistic woman. Just take it. You don't need to experience it for yourself. If you see a woman whom you cannot account for how they are moving, her ways are not clear, she's not an open book, beware. All right? In verse 8 it says, remove your way far from her. Once you see this, remove your way far from her and do not come near the door of her house. It says in verse 9, lest you give your honor unto others, and your ears unto the cruel. Because when you go near the door of her house, it says, you will find yourself inside. She will make sure. She is hunting you, make no mistake about it. Anytime you see a very seductively dressed woman, make no mistake about it. That in itself is actually abuse. That is abuse. Because you have not asked to see it. And she is actually taking advantage of your male nature to arouse this thing which is intrinsic inside you, to arouse this nature to go after that, because it's a sexual language. Only that it's not with someone you're supposed to be doing it with. So it is a form of abuse when they force it onto your eyes without you asking for it. It's just like what advertisement has become today. Why do you think we have ad blockers and all these kinds of things? It's because if you notice, advertisers are actually psychologically people who are abusers. Not always, but if you the way advertisement is set up today, say on social media, you want to watch your own stuff, but you keep having pop-ups of adverts you don't want to see, and at some point in time it could get so severe that you even leave the content that you wanted to watch, because you are being forced, it's being thrown at you. It's one of the arguments that people who are against social media have against social media, because you wake up and it is a very narcissistic thing when someone presents and throws onto you, before your face, something that you do not desire, something you have not asked for, and something that will actually cause you to do something you don't want. That is a spirit of manipulation. In the same way, it applies even to seductive women. Someone just dressing as scantily as possible, that is someone taking advantage of your nature to manipulate you into doing something you don't want. That is abuse. That is psychological abuse. All right, so it says here in verse 9, this is what, if you go near the door of her house, because of your nature, it is not natural that you will be able to resist stepping inside. And this is the situation that you will find yourself in. All right? This is the situation that you will find yourself in. You will find that she has brought you in and you have given your honor and to others, because when people know this is the life you're living, they will lose respect for you. And also, you will give your ears unto the cruel, because this is a narcissist who has trapped you for their own benefit. They will use you. You will spend your energy, you will spend your money, you will spend your strength, you will spend your essence onto that person. And then they will devalue you and discard you. And that is coming. That's what the Bible means by you will give your ears unto the cruel. So beware. If you see these things, don't go near the door of a house, it says. In chapter 6, it says, verse 25, do not lust after her beauty in your heart, because beauty is the trap that they use to catch up to you or to catch on to you. Remember, they have nothing else to use. So they will use their beauty as a weapon instead of as a blessing. So anyway, it says in verse 26, For by means of a whorish woman, a man is brought down to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will hunt for his precious life. It says there, can a man take fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Verse 28, can one go upon hot coals and his feet not be burned? And it says here concerning the adulteress, so he that goes into his neighbor's wife, whoever toucheth her shall not be innocent. It continues there. Whoever commits adultery with a woman lacks understanding. He who does it destroys his own soul. This is another red flag. If you see a woman who already is married, an adulteress, and she is open to other men, either by her dressing, by her words, she is inviting others. Be careful, because someone who has an adulterous spirit will be your destruction. You will be wounded, it says in verse 33. You will be dishonored, it says. And it also says that her husband will not accept any gift to please his wrath. When he comes to avenge you, you will die. So be careful. When you see narcissistic women are also adulterous. They sleep around with other men who are not their husband. In chapter 7, verse 11, it says, these narcissistic women, they are loud, they are stubborn. Okay. Her feet abide not in her house. All right. This is high psychology. You know, when God is trying to save your life, He will tell you things in a preventative tone. You understand? Is that a word? Preventative. In a preventive tone. So He is explaining to you the things that you need to look out for, so that you don't need to follow it to the end to know. He is showing you how to know before you can even get to the consequence, before you can even start. And He says, if you see a woman who is loud and stubborn, all right, and her feet do not abide in her house, it says here, now she is without, now in the streets, and she lies in wait at every corner. If you see these signs, earlier in the earlier chapter, it had said her ways are movable, so that you cannot be able to know where she goes, what she does. So this is just building upon that. It also says she has fair speech in verse 21. This is chapter 7. She has perfected the use of fair speech. This means seductive speech. And it also says in the same verse that she used this to cause him to yield. So you understand, this is how you know the difference. Because of course we want fair speech for everyone. But when a narcissist uses it, she is using it as a weapon. She is using it as an instrument of manipulation. She uses it to cause you to yield. And then it says there, with the fluttering of her lips, she forced him. You get me? So the Bible is actually doubling down on what I just said concerning the analogy of the advertisements. With the flattering of her lips, she forced him. Okay? So flattering, flirting, all those things that are meant to cause you to do that which you would normally not want to do. You are doing it because it's a weakness that is being preyed upon. The Bible equates that as forcing. So women need to understand, anytime you are dressing extremely scantily, every time you are speaking extremely seductively, those flirting comments, those unnecessary flattery comments, those things are actually classed by scripture as force. In God's eyes, there's no difference between someone who flatters you in order that they may cause you to yield with a person who rapes you. Both are forcing you because they are using whatever they can to cause you to do what you would normally not do. In verse 22, it explains here. It says, he goes after her straight away, as an ox goes to the slaughter, as a fool to the correction of the stocks. The stocks are a torture device. And then it says in verse 23, this is chapter 7, verse 23, till a dart is like an arrow, strikes through his liver. Now we are talking about venereal diseases. As a bird hasteth to the snare, as a bird flies quickly to the trap, and knoweth not that it is for his life. When a narcissist is hunting after you, my dear men, this is what you must understand. You are in danger not only of the vengeance of a man, if it's the husband, not only of losing honor, not only of losing the strength of your ears. It says here, you are actually in danger of acquiring a sexually transmitted disease, which happens all the time. They released the statistics just the other day, and in Kenya we saw that 67% of new HIV cases are actually women. And so the young woman especially, is responsible for spreading up to 67% more venereal diseases than the man. Do you understand? It is because we are dealing with narcissistic women. You must beware. If 67% of those cases that are found to be new of venereal diseases are being spread by young women, men, you are in danger. You need to look out. It says here, verse 26, 25, let not your heart decline to her ways. Don't give your heart to her. Do not go astray in her paths. This means physically. If you know she uses this route, use the other one. If she uses Koinange Street, use Tomboya Street. You understand me? Don't even use the physical pathways that she uses. It says in verse 26, for she has cast down many wounded. Don't be fooled by the appearance of a woman who is willing to force you with seduction. Don't be fooled by their appearance. The Bible knows them. Listen, this man who was writing this had 1,000 women. He knows women. He was saying to you, if you see this type of woman, beware, she has cast down many wounded. And it says, many strong men have been slain by her. This word slay queen, I know we just use it as fashion. It's actually the truth. They slay men. It's said here, 1,000 years before Christ. For she has cast down many wounded, Many strong men have been slain by her. It says in verse 27, her house is the way to hell, going down to the chambers of death. So now we're even going towards not just consequences for this life, but consequences for the afterlife. Meskia, you hear me? It says there that you're actually in danger of hell by engaging with this woman. It says many, many, many of them who have been with her are in hell. And let's look at chapter 9. Chapter 9 continues with the same topic. Verse 13, it says, a foolish woman is clamorous. Clamorous just means loud and boisterous and stubborn. It's the same thing as what we had read earlier. It says, she is simple and she knows nothing. You understand this? 9 verse 13, this is another red flag when you're looking out for this narcissistic woman. It says she is simple, she is loud and boisterous. She's loud, stubborn, boisterous. That's verse 13. She is simple and she knows nothing. The reason she does is not because she doesn't have intelligence, God-given intelligence. No, it's because in her life, she's been using all her time and all her effort in doing these things we said before. Perfecting her appearance, perfecting her art of flirting and flattery to gain what she wants. She's not been developing herself. She's not been working on herself to be able to achieve things, to be able to be skilled at things. And if you see these women who take down these strong men that we saw in the previous verse, strong men doesn't just mean physically. Strong men means people who are capable, people who have perfected themselves, people who have worked on themselves for years. If you notice, they are brought down by very simple women. It's the same. It's the Bible says it here. In my tribe, we have a saying, which is the Kikuyu language in Kenya. We have a saying that goes like, let me just translate it. A warrior is not felled except by a maize cob. Have you understood that? You might go try to fight a wrestler, a warrior, you will not be able to bring him down. But the thing that takes them down in a war is not another warrior, is not you. You can't be able to do it. It's a simple maize cob. That is what fells him down to the ground and exposes him to danger and to death. It's the same comparison. That's what our wise men were saying. What brings down capable people is not other capable people usually. If you observe these rich billionaires, the people who are talented, all these kinds of awesome men, you will realize it is these simple girls who are simple, who are loud, who are boisterous, who are seductive, who know nothing. These are the ones who bring them down. So you're being told by the Bible, watch out for it. In chapter 9, Proverbs 9:13, she is loud, she is stubborn, she is simple, she knows nothing. She never takes time to develop herself. She only gets what she gets by seduction, by flirting, by being evil. Watch out for it. In chapter 9, in verse 18, it says, that person who goes into her house, that person does not know that the dead are there. Her house is full of dead men's bones, I think it says in the NIV. And then it says something like the path between her legs is the highway to the grave. But in KJV it just says, and her guests are in the depths of hell. So after Solomon in the earlier parts of the book of Proverbs has given us the warnings or what to look out for when we are we are trying to evade or avoid dangerous women or narcissistic women. In verse 31, which is the last, in chapter 31, which is the last chapter of the book of Proverbs, he dedicates that chapter to now talk about the woman you're going for, the woman you're supposed to actually get. This is how she looks like. She is known as the Proverbs 31 woman. This was his mother who was telling him about this woman. And these are the things, some of the things that she said. In verse 10, she said, "Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies." Verse 11, the heart of her husband safely trusts in her, so that he will have no need of spoil. That means basically he will lack nothing. So a kind of woman you want is the kind of woman whom your heart can safely trust in. It says in verse 12, she does him good and not evil all the days of her life. It says in verse 13, this kind of woman seeks wool, she seeks flax, she works willingly with her hands. That is the perfect number one antithesis to the toxic, narcissistic, manipulative woman. This woman works willingly with her hands. It says in verse 14, she is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. In verse 15, it says, she rises also while it is yet night. You get me? She doesn't sleep the whole day. She rises before the sunrise. She gives meat to her household at that time. And she also does this, giving a portion of this to her maidens. Which means she's a good boss. How are the bosses that you know? I'm sure you've met narcissistic women who are bosses. What's the difference? They are actually some of the worst bosses in the world towards other women. But this Proverbs 31 woman, verse 15, it actually says she's a good boss. She gives a portion of her increase to her maidens. In verse 16, she considers a field, she buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She guards her loins with strength. Verse 17, she strengthens her arms. She perceives that her merchandise is good. Her candle goes out by night. Okay, she does not sleep until it is night again. And then she wakes up before it is sunrise. You understand? She laid her hands to the spindle. Her hands hold the distaff. She works hard, in short. She stretches out her hand to the poor. Verse 20. She reaches forth her hands to the needy. This is another. You want a woman who is kind. Don't all these narcissistic women who are obsessed with themselves are red flags. Leave them alone. If you ever come across a girl or a woman who thinks life is all about her satisfaction, her achievements, her her happiness, everything is all about her. She never thinks about others. She always thinks about herself. Keep off. You've heard this statement among women, especially young women of our day. You've heard her saying something like, whatever is mine, whatever is yours is ours. And then they joke about it. It's no joke. That's a very major telltale sign. It is a red flag beeping in your face like this. Because the contrast when Solomon's mom is telling him about the kind of woman he should go for is here in verse 15. Uh, and in verse 20, sorry, it says, she stretches out her hand to the poor. She's not self-obsessed. She thinks about others. Also, she's empathetic. She has empathy for people, which is a very major thing that narcissists lack. Of course, the narcissists who learn about this try to copy. They try to emulate. And we will address them later in what we will call the communal narcissist. But basically, at the basic level, someone who is obsessed with themselves, they don't think about others, all their gains are for themselves and for sharpening their appearance and perfecting their seductive traits for others. That's not the kind of person you want. The woman you want is the kind of person who is empathetic, who gives, and who deliberately divides and works that in such a way that a portion of her increase belongs to the needy in society. It says in verse 21, she is not afraid of the snow for her household. It means come rain, come sunshine, cold, heat, doesn't matter, whatever is going on around the world, that will not stop her from getting what she needs to get for her home. In verse 23, it says, her husband is known in the gates. All right. The gates in Bible days were where the business of the land was carried out, where the name, the law was handled, where everything that went into and out of a city was handled. So the gates were a very important place in Bible days. And it says here, her husband is known in the gates. When he sits among the elders of the land, people know him because of his wife, not because of himself. And remember, this is the husband being talked about is the king of the land. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying this is not a text that is telling men to just go and sit around for their wives to work for them. No, this is talking about a king, because it is a king being addressed. He said when this guy is at the gates in the highest places of the land, his name is known, not only for his own achievements, not only for his own power as a king, not only in walking in his kingly essence, but also because of the kind of reputation his wife has given to him. It says here, when she opens her mouth, wisdom flows. Strength and honor are in her clothing. She looks good, it says. It says in verse 28, her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also praises her. Many daughters she has done virtuously. But this girl excels them all. Then it says in verse 30, favor is deceitful. Be careful. When you see these people, these women who seem to be favored around, don't let that fool you. People on social media who keep talking about what people are doing for them, favor can be deceitful. That's a point that is brought out in the KJV. In the NIV, it would say something like charm is deceitful, which speaks to the character of that which actually gains her that favor. So charm does not necessarily mean this person is a good person. Narcissists are very charming people. And in fact, many women have fallen for narcissists because of that charming trait. So beware. Don't be easily deceived by charm. It says here, and beauty is vain. Okay? Beauty being vain, meaning it has no lasting impact. All right? In other versions, it says beauty is passing, which means it won't even last forever anyway. You won't be the same. You won't look the same at 20 or at 50 as you did at 20. You get me? So beauty passes. But a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. The takeaway here is there is no narcissistic woman who fears the Lord. Any woman who fears the Lord cannot be self-absorbed, cannot be manipulative, cannot find reasons to come against the things that I've said in this text, because I'm directly reading the Bible. So in closing, let us bridge the gap between the narcissistic woman and the kind of woman that you need. Let's go back to Proverbs chapter 4. Verse 7 says, wisdom is the principal thing. The way to get this woman is the way you avoid the other one. You understand me? Wisdom is the principal thing. If you attain wisdom, you shall first be able to avoid the evil woman. Secondly, you shall be able to, it shall set you on the path towards getting the good woman. It says about wisdom, if you exalt her, because wisdom is the first woman you should get before getting the good one. So the Bible speaks of wisdom in the feminine. It says, exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honor when you remember her. She shall give to your head an ornament of grace. A crown of glory she shall deliver to thee. So she shall straighten your steps. And when you run, you shall not stumble. She shall stabilize you. Meaning, as you achieve what you need to achieve in life, wisdom will stabilize you. That, of course, will protect you from evil women and will bring only the right women your way. It says in verse 13, chapter 4, take fast hold of instruction. Let her not go. Keep her safe, for she is your life. The only way that this will happen is by acquiring wisdom for yourself. When you begin to acquire wisdom, you will notice one thing. Wisdom itself will isolate you from both men and women alike. But in this context, it will isolate you from narcissistic women. If you begin to exercise wisdom, and if you begin to propagate wisdom and to carry yourself in wisdom, the first thing that will happen is that women will actually reduce in number among your circles. They will run away from you, because most women who come to you are actually coming to manipulate you. Remember, narcissists are hunters. They go after their prey. It does not change when it is narcissistic women in question. So in this case, if you begin to acquire wisdom and you begin to demonstrate it, and when they start talking to you, they can see it in you, they can hear it in your voice. The narcissistic women will be reduced by about 90%. So do not think there's a problem with you, especially if you're a young man. When you see girls taking off and wanting nothing to do with you, it's because they can see we cannot take advantage of this guy. Of course, that means that only means you are doing the right thing. It's not that you're a jack and then you're saying people are running away from me. No. If you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're authentic, you're walking in the light, you have good intentions, you're not toxic, you're not manipulative, you're not all these kinds of things, and you see women taking away from you, just know that wisdom is isolating you from narcissistic women. It's protecting your life. Don't be deceived by their looks, because without wisdom, their beauty, their flattery will trick you, and it will force you, like the Bible says. By her looks and her flattery, she forced them, it says. These things will not be able to force you into that downward path of hell and death. Subscribe to this channel and let's start on this healthy path of making our future great with the partners that we choose. Also, please get back to me about the audio quality. This time I tried to just use my phone speakers instead of the microphone that I normally use. I hope this video is audible enough, but I'll appreciate it if you give me feedback on it. All right, so that I know whether to just keep using my phone for now or go back to the sound system I was using. Stay hard, stay blessed. Amen.